Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. I have Chester Jackson here with me today. How you doing, Chester?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Doing great. We are in for a great show today with a gentleman who is wise and he gives you a great smile the whole time doing it. So I'm looking forward to a great conversation. Good morning to everybody who's tuning in from wherever you may be. I just want to say hello to you. Thanks for being here, and let's rock and roll.
All right. All right. When you first asked me how I was doing, I thought about it, and the knee jerk response is I'm doing well because generally I am. But really, right, as I thought about this program and I thought about what I wanted to say and the opportunity that I had, I think what best describes it, the word that best described it is blessed. I have been blessed every day in so many different ways, every day, and I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly. I truly believe that I have been blessed.
Thank God for that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely want to give that moment a few seconds and appreciate it and respect it.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. Yeah. Okay. What do you do to maintain the blessings that you have in your life?
What do I do? I do a lot of things, and they're not really conscious things to maintain the blessings. They are really taking the time to appreciate the blessings. I mean, all of us are blessed. All of us are blessed. First of all, just it's astronomical the fact that we are here, and especially at a time like this when death is literally all around us and everywhere, and we are here in this moment. And when I talk about blessed, I think about the opportunity that we have to make the best of the moments that we're given. Now, there's always going to be those days when, you're thinking, man, what have I got to feel positive about? What have I got to feel motivated about? And the reality is that the answer to that question is right there in front of you. You just have to sometimes stop and breathe, literally stop and breathe and compose yourself and look around and see what the blessings are. I was thinking about you and while we were back in the green room, as they say. And just looking at you with your little baby there, that's an unbelievable blessing. That's an unbelievable blessing to you, to your family, to the future, to the universe. In your arms, in that instant, in that moment, is the world. I mean, there's everything ahead of her and everything, all the changes in you, and I could just see you were beaming like crazy. Just looking at this baby, just feeding her, patting her on the back. That's it. That's why we're alive. That's why we're alive.
Do you feel that the children are the future?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, man. So much of what I've learned, and you can learn from everyone, but so much of what I've learned has been from the children that I have worked with over the years. I've had an amazing opportunity, and I say this to parent groups all the time, is that parenting gives us the opportunity to be conscious in our parenting. And most folks, when they grow up, when they get married, have a baby, they just do what they do. They do what they know. They do what was taught to them, and it's not necessarily a conscious process, and it goes ups and downs. But for the most part, you do what you do. But when you're involved in foster care and adoption, there's a whole infrastructure around your parenting. You all of a sudden become living in a fishbowl where everybody knows better than you, at least as far as they're concerned. But the upside to that is we have an opportunity to be conscious in our parenting. And I have led parent groups. I have been an adopted parent, foster parent, and adoptee myself, as you know, informally. So I spent my whole adult life thinking about those facts, and not ruminating in them, not wallowing in them, but thinking about them publicly, personally, professionally, and in all aspects of my life. And what that gives me over time is a perspective. And when you're raising children, the one thing that flies by, and every parent will tell you, every parent will tell you, the one thing that seems to fly by is the time. 1 minute they're little and cute and bubbly, and then you turn around and they're knocking stuff over, and then they're talking, and then they want to drive your car, and then on and on and on and on and on. And before you know it, you sit back, you find yourself sitting back and wondering, where did that time go? But when you're leading parent groups, or when you're involved in parent groups, you're looking at all those instances. You're helping folks recognize that, isn't this amazing? This subtle little change that none of your friends will see. You definitely won't see it because you're in it. But these subtle little changes that happen every single day when you're raising a child, when you're watching a child grow. When babies are little and firstborn and new to the world and to us, we're so overcome with the joy and the beauty of this child that many times we want them to stay like that forever, because that is just a beautiful, beautiful time with very few challenges, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But as you get older, go ahead.
You mentioned adoption.
Yes.
And adoption is one of the milestones of the child welfare system that I think is very impactful on everybody involved.
Yes.
And we're gonna talk more about adoption specifically. I want to talk a little bit about foster care before we get into your actual life journey, because when you talk about the opportunity that we have to appreciate children and to have our consciousness raised by engaging with children, and especially foster children, I'm wondering, do people have the challenge of dealing with their own trauma? Do they have to climb across their own trauma? Do they have to climb across their own anxieties and pressures in order to get to that point where they can appreciate a child? Does the parent have work that they need to do in order to get to that place that you're describing where they can totally feel that moment?
Yes, that's the beauty of it. Is that the adoption and foster care, because of the way the system is structured, they want you to be able to predict the future. And so in order to they want to put things in place, allegedly, so that it'll help you predict the future. So you give them love and good nutrition, everybody will live happily ever after. We all know it's a lot more complicated than that. But the reality is, it's a great gift that we're forced to look at our parenting. We're forced to think about our decisions and the consequences of what we do, and what it all comes down to, Cedric, is you hit the nail on the head. What it all comes down to is every parent ever born, ever existed, has an obligation to recognize where their trauma is. And there's not a person alive. Birth itself is a traumatic experience. When you go from bliss to this, that's a traumatic experience. So, I mean, it's by definition, there is nobody that gets out of the womb without trauma. And of course,
would you say
degrees of it?
Would you say that varying degrees of trauma? I heard you. Mm-hmm. Would you say that foster care and then also adoption is one of the select few instances in our society where you're certainly going to have to go through that process of self-reflection and introspection? Because that's a gift. It's a gift if you get to a point in your life where you're like, hold up, stop the train. Let me look at myself. Let me evaluate myself. Let me make sure I'm being my best self.
Yes.
Where does that happen?
Yes.
Where does it happen? I'll tell you where I think it happens. I think it happens in church, where you're like, gosh, I got a little bit more lining up to do with the word. I think it happens in church.
Yeah.
And I think, it could happen, late in your career, but I think it happens in foster care. I think it happens in adoption.
Let me just say this. Like a lot of gifts, we don't always accept them or appreciate them. And many times we don't take care of them. Now, the reality is, trauma, by definition, is something that you want to get beyond. You want to get around. You don't want to deal with it. So I wish it were simply a matter of, you become a foster parent, you get introspective. You become an adoptive parent, you start thinking about your life, your tragedies, what brought you to that doorstep. The reality is, a lot of people, and I dare say most people, don't want to go down that road. That's the last thing they do. That's sometimes the thing they do when nothing else has worked. Right. And it doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you get there, though. But I wish it were simply a matter of, okay, you want to be a foster parent, you have to look into your heart and see what's what. People don't want to do that. Even when you go to church, there are many folks who go to church and they sit there and they go every Sunday and they walk out and they are they are who they are. You know what I mean? You have to participate in your own well-being, and that doesn't change because you're a foster parent.
That's right.
But you have the unique opportunity of having a system structured around you to remind you of that, if you're willing to heed that advice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you don't heed that advice, if you don't do that introspective work, are you potentially never the best parent that you can be?
If you don't do that work, just as a person, you're not going to be the best person that you can be, because that work is a disability. I mean, the work of uncovering it, it's a disability. So it's like not taking advantage of the opportunity to see clearer, not wearing my glasses, as an example. I'm not going to function the best in the world if I don't have my glasses on, especially if I'm in my car. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And that's a simple thing, but that's a choice that I make every day to make sure I have my glasses. Growing up, my mother made sure I never left my house without my keys. And as I got older, my wallet. You always have your ID and you have your keys, right? They're just basic rules that we are taught as we grow up to help us function in the world better. And this is the same thing. And it's every human being. Everybody has to do the work. You can choose when you do it, but you're going to do it. I mean, you can't choose when you do it, but you're going to do the work. Now, ideally, if you're raising children, there is nothing that will bring you in touch with your stuff like bringing a child in from outside. There's nothing like having a child or bringing a child in, becoming a parent, that will put you in touch with your stuff. No therapist, nothing will put you in touch quicker than that. Now, just because you get in touch with it, that doesn't mean you respond to it. That doesn't necessarily mean you even recognize it, But the reality is, it is the opportunity to change not only that child's life, but your life. And you cannot change that child's life substantially until you are willing to change your life with that child. Because the minute that child comes in, whether you give birth to them or whether you bring them in through adoption or foster care, the minute that child enters your life has changed. No matter how much you want to pretend that everything is the same, it's not. And you're just fighting against the tide at that point. Now, again, it's a choice. Some people struggle along, and it doesn't have to be the end of the world either. But it's not the most efficient way to get upstream.
Well, you made a great analogy. You said that to not do the introspective work, the personal inventory that will make you a better person, would be like going through life without glasses when you needed them.
When you need them, yes.
And so I'm trying to see, what would it take for more people to see parenting and that relationship in the light that you did a few minutes ago, where it's obviously a blessing. This is an opportunity for me to raise my consciousness. This is an opportunity for me to bend time. My days aren't long anymore. My days are as fast as the fun that I'm having. But in order for more people to have that experience, because that is the happiness that children feel. And they say, oh, we have that type of energy in this house. I'm gonna grow to be 6 feet tall. We got that type of energy in this house. I'm getting ready to shoot over the moon. I'm gonna achieve beyond all belief because I can feel that energy.
Yes.
And in order for more children to have that feeling from their parents, their parents are gonna have to put their glasses on.
Yes.
By doing the introspective work of working through their trauma and stuff like that. And I'm to the point, Chester, where I'm like, we should almost make it a little bit more. It needs to be more than a choice. It's a choice, but I have to remind you that it's an obligation. It's an obligation to humanity, and it's an obligation to this child.
Yes.
To feel
yes.
that energy from you that's going to propel them beyond the moon.
Yes. And there are lots of ways we can get there. There are lots of ways we can get there. Ideally, if there was a magic wand we could wave, that'd be a beautiful thing. Just wave the magic wand, everybody drinks the Kool-Aid, everybody's on the plan. The reality is, people come in a whole lot of different packages, with a whole lot of different heads, a lot of different trauma, a lot of different issues, a lot of different ways of viewing the world. And it's not a matter of being right or wrong, because no matter what situation you could paint, somebody could say, well, I had all those things and look at all my kids. They all turned out great. And this one's a lawyer and that one's a doctor and this one's happy and that one's happy. And, you can't argue with it. People get, we're all, it's our journey, even if there's some similarities in my life and your life. There's only one Cedric Riley doing Cedric Riley, right? And there's only one
That's
Chester
right.
Jackson going along. And even if, like if we're siblings, we live in the same house, we got the same parents, we're watching, I like to say we're watching the same movie. I mean, the same things are happening to both of
That's
us,
right.
but we're seeing those events through totally different lenses. You're
That's
seeing
right.
it through Cedric Riley, and that's everything that's happened to Cedric. The stuff that's really happened to Cedric, the stuff that Cedric think happens to him, the stuff that impacted him in such a way that he feels like it happened. You know what I mean? Every influence that you have come across in your life impacts who's sitting there right now nodding their head. So
right.
it's counterproductive to say, well, this is the way. This is the way you get from point A to point B. Everybody gets there in their own time. But there are things that we as professionals who work with the foster care system, if we choose and if we have the insight ourselves to appreciate that the hardest part of this job for us as adoptive and foster parents is to get out of our own way, because parents, the goal of a parent is to prepare a child to leave them, to prepare a child, to give them the strength that they need, the tools that they need, the skills that they need to make it without them. That's your function as a species. That's your
Wow.
function. You have a child, you prepare it to go on without you, right? That's the function. But so many of us, because of a lot of reasons, but some including because we entered into this process not for whatever the child might be, whoever the child might be, we entered into it for what we're going to get out of it. And I'm not judging that. I mean, we become parents for a whole bunch of reasons. Accidentally, oh my God, we become parents because of I want to raise a child. We become parents because I want to undo what was done. I want to do better than. There are a billion reasons, and that's okay. But what needs to happen in order for us to be the best that we can be is for us to recognize our stuff from their stuff. And that's true of parents across the board. I think about my youngest son. All my kids played some kind of sports, organized sports, but my youngest two, I was there for all of it, and I know many times I was sitting in those stands watching my son play baseball or my daughter play softball, and that was me. I was sitting there thinking about when I was 8 years old, when I was 9 years old, how much I would have loved to have had that opportunity, and I did not have that. I was sitting there for me as much as I was sitting there for them. It's not always a negative, is what I'm trying to say, but it's always it's always there. Go ahead.
It's always there.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about your childhood?
Yes.
What was your beginning like? And
Okay.
what was your early years like?
Now, whenever I get this question, and I do get it periodically, is I like to start off with the line from The Jerk. Remember the movie The Jerk? You might be too young to remember. Where Steve Martin, the movie opens up and the line is, "I was born a poor black child." And that really sums it up, because and I know what a poor black child's experience is without knowing anything about that particular poor black child, right? So that sums it up in a lot of ways. So that's the first element of it. I was born a poor black child, right? And when I talk about my informal adoption, that simply means there were no systems involved. My birth mother and my adoptive mother were friends, and they knew each other. And when I was born, there was a decision made between the two of them that I was going to go home from the hospital with my adoptive mother, right? There was no systems involved. There was no social workers. It was just, boom, here you go. And that was not the first time that happened in my family for my mother. She had adopted another son 5 years before me in the very same way. In the very same way. So your adoptive mother had a relationship with your biological mother? Yes, they were friends. Yes.
Okay. What a loving way for your adoption to occur. I'm hearing so much love out of that exchange right there. There was love on your biological mother's part to say, I think you might be better for this than me. There was love on your adoptive mother's part to say, I'm the right person for the job. And then you grew up to make the world a better place. And I think that it's great that there weren't a whole lot of social workers involved. There weren't a lot of systems involved.
Right.
These were some responsible people doing what they believed to be the right thing.
Now, let me say this about that. That is the beautiful hallmark version of what the story was. And that's based on the information that you were presented with, right? Mm-hmm. And my story, my version of that story is pretty much that. It's always been pretty much that. Now, the issue with it is in that great gift, that great act of love was an incredible act of disloyalty, for lack of a better term. I don't know what the particulars were, why my adopted mother felt the need to make this swap. I'll never know that because they're both deceased. And when my adopted mother was still alive, she couldn't talk about it. She couldn't talk about it. And there are layers to this story. Now, from the outside, and I share your perception of it because I don't have any malice toward either one of them, although I have beef with both of them, you know. And the beef primarily is I deserved more than you gave me. And I'm not talking about a safe home and all that. I'm talking about all of the information that went into that decision. All of the information that went into that decision, right? My issue is not that they did it. My issue is that they kept it a secret. In short, because they lied about it. Now, my birth mother never lied to me about it because we never had a discussion about it. Now, I knew her as my cousin, as my aunt. And hold on now. She wasn't actually my aunt, but the way the relationship was laid out is that she was, you know how you have, black folks and lots of other folks have fictive kids.
This your auntie so-and-so, this your uncle so-and-so.
And so she was my aunt, right? So I knew her. We played together with her kids, at the holidays kind of thing. We did a lot of that kind of stuff. Now, here's the way the human mind works, or at least I shouldn't say that the way my mind worked is as a young child, and I don't know how young, but I know it was young. I knew there was something going on. And the only memories I have of my birth mother are from Thanksgiving type things. And in those occasions, she was never happy. I don't have any vision of her in my mind, of her smiling, of her holding me or pinching my cheeks or doing any of that stuff that grown folk do to babies, right? To young people. Right. I don't have any of those images. So now here I am, I'm processing it. I'm going along. When I was about 13 years old, I broke my hip. I had what they call the slipped epiphysis, which means that the hip joint slipped out because I was growing too fast and cracked. And in those days, they didn't want to do hip replacements on young kids because they were still growing. So in any event, I'm in the hospital, and this was a long, drawn-out process. And my mother comes to me, and this is, again, like I'm 12, 13. My mother comes to me, sitting on the edge of the bed like she always does, and I could read my mother like a book. So I'm looking at her like, Mom, what's going on? And she informs me that my aunt, my auntie died, right? And when you're a kid, you got distant relatives, you got relatives that you haven't seen in a while, and they're your relatives, but there's not this kind of closeness. And so I was like, right. oh, that's sad. I was struck by it. But what sat with me for years is how my mother sat in that moment. She was devastated. And she was devastated because I can't say why. I don't know. And she never shared that with me. But what I'm speculating is that part of the devastation is she knew this was much bigger than a distant relative dying. Right. She knew that this was much bigger than a distant relative dying, that there is information in here. And that's why I go back. That's why I go back to, and it's funny, in this time we're kind of fixated on the big lie. And in adoption and foster care, the big lie is when we try to pretend that a child that we adopted was born to us, right? And sometimes, we like to dress it up in, oh, it's too hard, it's too difficult to explain, so-and-so won't understand, yada, 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 yada. But the reality is grown folks decided that you don't deserve, you can't handle, you don't need this information. And not only that decision, and then they lied about it time and time and time again. Because having children like you do, is that when children can talk, they talk. They ask questions. How come I look like so-and-so? How come so-and-so said this? You know what I mean? There are lots of opportunities that parents get to tell the truth and be straight up. Right. But 9 times out of 10, shouldn't say that, but a lot of the time, folk choose to protect themselves because these are hard things to talk about. They protect themselves at the expense of the child. Now, again, I'm trying to pull judgment, even though I sound judgmental, I'm trying to pull the judgment out of it because we are all human beings and you can't walk in anybody else's shoes. So that's why I tell you, I have no animosity against my birth mother. I love my birth mother simply because she was the vessel into which brought me into this world. I wish that I could have gotten to know her, that I could remember what she smelled like, what her hair was like. I could remember what her touch felt like. I wish that I had those things. I don't have them, those things. My adopted mother, same thing. I love her, and I'm going to wrap it up so you can ask me a question. My adopted mother, I love her dearly because she mothered me. She was there when I cried. She was there when I needed my butt wiped. She was there when I needed discipline. She was there when I just needed to know that I counted in this world. But what my beef is with her is that she lied to me over and over and over and over again. And this is just to show you how deep the psychological is of it. Even when I finally forced her to tell me, she had to tell me because I had to get a birth certificate, and my mother's name wasn't on the birth certificate, whole 9 yards. And she sat down and she handed me my original birth certificate, and she was devastated by it. She was so devastated. And my instinct was, and I was a grown man. I was 33 years old at that point. My instinct was, Mom, this is a piece of paper. This doesn't mean anything. There was nothing that you could give me or say to me that's going to change how I feel about you. And then she said to me in this moment, because now I had shifted into protector mode. I'm protecting my mom. Then she said to me in an instant, I wish I had gone to my grave before you found this out. And Cedric, I cannot tell you how much that cut me. And outraged me. Now in that moment, and my mother lived for years after that, I never brought this to her because I knew from life experience that she was not prepared to go down that road. So what I'm angry about is the fact that I didn't have an opportunity to have the discussions I needed. I thank God that I found out while she was still on this planet. I thank God, because I would have been lost if they were both gone.
Mm-hmm. I am so into this moment right here with you right now. 5 minutes ago, however many minutes ago it was, when you said that you were told that your mother was your auntie,
right,
and that you were allowed to go on like that for years, my brain turned a little bit. And as my brain turned a little bit, you started talking about the impact that scenario had on your mind. And when you fast forward and you talk about how you felt, in essence, disrespected at the way that it all played out, I'm reminded of my cause, my objective in life, which is we've got to make it more than free choice. It's got to be more than free choice. It's got to be more than, some people do it, some people don't. When it comes to respecting children. And we have a comment in the building because what you said was extremely touching just now. Starlet Cunningham says the silent generation. They operated on a model that a lot of us now deal with as trauma, residue. They didn't talk. We have so many unanswered questions. There's a corroboration between what she's saying and what you're saying, and y'all are both older than me, which is teaching me right now that we have a whole generation of parents who did not tell their children the full story.
And many are still not.
and many still are not telling their children the full story. And so in that we are disrespecting our children. When a child is young and they don't know and they're still just trying to, connect dots, they might have a question here and there, and you can say, oh, no, get your school stuff ready for tomorrow. But eventually that desire for an effective response will grow. It will grow like a tornado, the same way a twister starts off with a couple rocks spinning around and it turns into a major economic movement. That impacts everybody. It impacts the buildings. It impacts the people. It impacts the future. It's the same way each child is going to grow with that desire for the respect of information. And so I say, to all the mothers and the fathers out there, it can't just be your choice to do the introspective work or not. That will make you honest and transparent with the blessing that is a child. We've got to realize the mandate, the obligation that is upon us, because the child isn't going anywhere. The child is growing just like a tree. We're going to need the fruit off of this child one day. When I decide to be honest with this child, I'm going to need this child to be so fruitful that even though he's cut at the truth, he doesn't tear my house apart.
Right.
He doesn't hurt my feelings in return. I need this child to say, you know what, Mom? At least you did the best you can. I'm still blessed, and we can still move forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to respect the children. There's a new day upon us. The children are different. The mentality is different. And we have a whole generation of people, millions of people. You saw the comment by Star Cunningham, who are tired of the disrespect of our children. We'll be right back with more from Chester Jackson. America's Next Motivator, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. And we're back. Chester, how you feeling out there?
You had me on a runaway train right there.
This guy is a moving locomotive.
No. There was a lot in that break, and I saw the break. There was a lot of powerful imagery in there, and I think back on and what we said. You know, it's all complicated. It's all nuanced. There's layers and layers. I want people to understand that I'm passionate about my story because it happened to me. You know, I'm passionate about it, and I don't want them to read my passion, my volume as anger, because I am not angry. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt that my mothers had to carry this burden so long, and not just my mothers. I mean, I got brothers and sisters. I got brothers and sisters that I never knew. That's not true. That I did know as children, but that were cut away from me. That was a part of my heritage that was cut away from me. And now here we are as adults. We're all adults, and there are things that we will not get back. We won't get back those childhood years, and we still could have been in a relationship. You know, if the grown people involved would have been able to work through whatever the trauma was for them. And I don't know. I honestly don't know. Go ahead.
I want to say that I represent another generation of children who've been disrespected. And I know disrespect is an exact word to use, but that's the sense that young people get. It's the reason why, you know, at least at first, they're upset because they feel that they should be in the know of where they come from. People are very serious about their origin. They're very serious about knowing where they come from because they're busy interacting with people and, you know, trying to be confident and trying to stand on their own 2 feet and trying to be upright. And in order to do that, a lot of times you've got to be clear about where you've come from.
Yeah.
And so I represent, yet another generation where the ball was potentially dropped by people who, there was work that they needed to do that they didn't do. Mm-hmm. And so I want to normalize the passion that people possess about this, whether it be discovering their past, talking about their past, or being honest about how much more information they wanted, how much they desired for people to have potentially done things in a different way, because our hearts are on the line. And so when you can be clear that it's not anger, I want people to normalize the passion.
Right.
It's not anger, but let's normalize the passion, because the passion is real. And without the passion, we allow a whole nother generation, millions of young people grow up with the feeling of disrespect. And we know that when young people feel disrespected, they make choices. They don't always become child care workers and child care managers and pioneers like yourself. Sometimes they go out there and they damage other people. They damage society. Sometimes they damage themselves. And so there's a lot of damage that children end up expressing because they didn't feel respected enough by all the adults who brought them into the world. So no anger here today. We've been telling our stories for years, but the passion doesn't go anywhere. And we've got to at some point join hands in the change that is learning how to respect our children. And so now,
speaking of the change, I think a way that we can affect that change, at least in the foster care and adoption arena, and the way that we can affect that change is to help people, parents, adults, appreciate how important it is for their journey to be full, to have full disclosure as much as you know. That's now, right. Of course, if you're raising a child, it's up to you to filter it in such a way that it's still the truth. But there's a different truth when you're 2 years old, and then when you're 3 years old, and then when you're 9 years old, and then when you're 12 years old. You can filter it so that it doesn't have to be this devastating, your mom was a crackhead or whatever. It doesn't have to be that. That's your responsibility as a parent, right? Your responsibility is to be the litmus test for your child about life in the world. How can you prepare them to go out into the world if you don't give them the ammunition they need to address the things that are going to come at them? Right. And that's the issue with transracial adoption. That's the issue with all of the issues that we face in this nation, honestly, right now, is that we have a bunch of adults who either A, don't have a full range of emotions, either B, didn't get enough hugs, as ridiculous as it sounds, didn't get enough of themselves recognized, weren't afforded the space that they needed to become who they needed to be. So we get these stunted, stilted versions of men and women and people who are out to strike back instead of giving back, instead of reaching a hand back and pulling a kid up. I remember an experience when my son, my first son that came to us at 16. He was 6 feet tall, big kid. I went from no children to having a 16-year-old son. So and I know the first thing I wanted to establish in that relationship is that I'm in control here. And my view of what daddy was this strong, you do what I say because that's the way it's done. And I remember many times when that was the tack that I took with him. And he, looking back on it, he was not a kid who needed that. He needed me to lend him a hand. But at many of those times, I kept him in check because it was my insecurity about this relationship, who was in control, getting out of hand. And that's the beauty and the benefit of being conscious of your parenting. You don't always recognize it in the moment because it's in how I parented is what was in me, all the way through. As much as I spent in parenting classes talking about this and that and the other thing, when I was in parent mode, I did what I know, what was in my body. And that's what parents do, right? Now, it's up to us. That's why it's up to us to open ourselves up to be bigger than that. And it's not even bigger than who we are. It's to open ourselves up to the full space. When you become a parent, you have a whole set of different obligations, and not just to your family, not just to the world, but to this individual, because this individual is going to impact everybody else forever. So you have a whole new set of obligations.
I love the way that you went from the foster care system, adoption, and then out to the nation.
Yes.
You know, you went straight from the child welfare industry or the child welfare space to the nation.
Yes.
There is something that human beings need to do that we're not doing enough. There's not enough instances of us having that aha moment where we fill out effectively into the full range of emotions, the full range of mental capacity, even the full range of physical capacity that we are. Not enough of us have that moment where we actually fill out. And I'll give you some examples of people who have filled out. A lot of your athletes have filled out. Parents who are happy, joyous at their children and what they created have filled out. But these people are what we call exceptions. Sometimes say, oh, this person's an exception. He's not like everybody else. And it has to become normal that we go through the process of filling out.
Right.
Because when it comes to parenting, you can't be narrow anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we have enough scenarios out there in the world, whether it be college, your job, your relationships. These things don't always make you widen out.
No.
These things don't always make you fill out. And so we've got a lot of people who are narrow.
Right.
And because you're an adult and you're narrow at the same time, you think, well, nobody can make me do anything.
Right.
But when you get into foster care where you're dealing with someone else's child, a child who is in an emergency for respect. This child is in an emergency for the best care, in an emergency for you to know for a fact, hey, I'm preparing you to be an effective adult.
Right.
At that time more than ever. And so it becomes like, I need you to have this aha moment of understanding that you can't be narrow anymore. Yeah. Now more than ever, you've got to fill out inside of this thing called foster care and definitely inside of this thing called adoption. You've got to do this new thing that everybody's not doing, which is filling out.
Yes. And provide what you're doing with that is you're providing space for your child to be whoever they're going to be. But a big part of that is you have to move aside. You have to put your stuff aside. Separate.
I got something for you.
Go ahead.
I got something for you. I'll give you an example of some of the experiences that helped me to fill out. Okay. And I'm not done yet, but I know that that's the direction of life. That's the direction of growth. So I'm filling out. I'm not totally there yet, but I'm going that direction. Okay. These are some of the things that helped me to do that. I went to a 3-day camp retreat. I had never been on a camp retreat before. You know, I had experiences where there were motivators and there were healthy adults providing a healthy perspective. They were giving examples to me of what you can be if you go out there and you give expansion a shot. You go out there and you try. So now we're talking about parents. Parents are the key factor in the silence that we experience. Parents are the key factor in successful foster care, successful adoptions, and a successful society. We need our adults to fill out. We need our adults to really grow out into the space that they are in order for us to have a successful society. Do our parents? Do they need a 3-day camping trip? Let's talk about it.
Most parents need a 90-day camping trip every 90 days. The reality is it's a process, man. You don't wake up one day. The aha moment happens after that little light bulb has been, first the base of the light bulb was planted, and then another little filament, then another little filament, then a little bit of glass, a little bit of glass, a little bit of glass. And then one day it's like, boom, the light bulb is on, and you think, wow, in that instant took 10 years. That instant might have taken 15 years to get to this one instant. The reality is it's an ongoing process. And what I try to do, and that's part of why I get so much joy out of the work, is that I understand that people are going to do what they do. People are going to do what they do. And 9 times out of 10, it's good enough. 9 times out of 10. If you love them enough to open your heart, to bring them in and to bring them into your life, not just to your building, bring them into your life. That means they become a part of your family. Your family changes to accommodate these kids, right? You open it up, and then what you can do is everything that you need to do to help them become better. And by doing that, that's the work. That's the joy. That's parenting. That's the fulfillment that people get. People think when they have babies that that's the best part because you get to be there for all those births, you know? And everybody loves that infant stage because, man, you put them down there, you walk away, you can go to the movies, you can dance, and you come back and they're right there, right? It's
but
beautiful.
You know what? You know what?
What?
You're right about that. A lot of people think, oh, this is the big moment right here that I'm having children. Yep. But there's an elephant in the room. You know, there's an elephant in the room, which ain't so funny when, you know, when these children start growing up and you realize, hey, I was never able to stop my train so I can make sure that everything was working properly. And now I got another train next to me.
Yes. Yes. But
we have a comment.
That's the beauty of it, though. That's the beauty.
Right.
Of it. It is the work. But it is the reason you came there. It's like when you go to church, you don't just go to church to sit there and drop money in the basket. You go to church to feel the presence of God. You go to church to hear the music, to be lifted. So even if it's for that hour or 45 minutes or 4 hours, whatever it is, that's what you go there for. It's like some people say, why waste money on the lottery? You waste money on the lottery because you get to dream that for that week until that number is picked, you get to be a millionaire. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You're paying for that joy. And that's what parenting is. The work of parenting is the good part. That's not the bad part. The work of parenting is the good part. And the beauty that we have, again, with the captive audience of people in adoption and foster care, the adults, is that we need to help them appreciate that they want to do the difficult stuff. They want to, because that's where the healing happens. And that's where the love is born. You know, that's where the love is born. You know, so
we've got another comment from Star Seaham. Again, the conversation that we've been having this morning, while we are joyous in this moment and we're happy, we're passionate, this is a very powerful and important conversation. Starlet says the holes that go unfilled lead to complexities that have to be managed. When an adult can't manage, success is harder. Fill the holes. Key. Talk about the uncle that came back from Vietnam, a heroin addict. Talk about the cousins who have drug and alcohol problems. Stop hiding them. Help them. Talk about them. Fill the holes so that young adults can be equipped to deal.
Exactly.
This is the exact gravity that I wanted to bring through this conversation right here. We're uncovering potentially 3 generations of people whose parents or the parental generation, there were silences there about the uncles who came home heroin addicts and abused people, about the parents who had drug and alcohol problems, who hurt children, who hurt their brothers and sisters. And so now you got kids out there, they got 15 cousins and don't know any of them.
Yep.
And so we have a huge mandate on us at this time.
Excuse me.
For ordinary adults, for parents, for foster parents and potential adoptive parents. We've got to come up with a way as a child welfare industry, a foster care agency who has a budget, an adoption agency who has a budget, who has the call on their agency to make that prediction, right? Like you talked about earlier. We're asked to make the prediction. One of the biggest ways for us to be able to make the prediction of a successful foster care placement or a successful adoption, or that we're just making the community a better place, is that we've got to create this experience where we fill the holes. Right. For the adults. We've got to do something new. It can't be, I'm neutral because everybody comes from different walks of life. And so I know some people will get it and some people won't.
Right.
And one person impacts millions of people down the line.
And when parents are thinking about that very fact, how big this job is, it doesn't have to be that big. You don't have to bite off, how do you eat an elephant? A bite at a time, right? One bite at a time. And it's the simple things. If you have a death in your family, don't hide it from the child. Because that child needs to learn how you deal with death in your family. Right? If you have a birthday, don't hide it from the child. Don't use that as a weapon. You're not going to have a birthday today because I'm pissed off at you. Don't do those kind of things. The job of a parent, even if you're not the most sophisticated person in the world, is to help your child make it through the world. Obviously, you owe them their truth, and you owe them their truth, and that should be the easiest thing to do. because that has nothing to do with you. You are not responsible for that. You did not do that. You are truly a spectator in that. But your obligation is to share it in a loving way that feeds the spirit and doesn't kill it. So, it's not a competition between you as the adoptive parent or foster parent and the birth parent, because a birth parent is something you will never be to this child. You are never going to be this child's birth parent. And that birth parent is always going to be that birth parent, but that might be all they are to that child. You know what I mean? But to that child, in his mind, he needs to know, you've heard the expression, I think Malcolm X said it, you can't hate the tree without hating the fruit, or can't hate the fruit without hating the tree. Right? You know what I mean? So the reality is, if you're thinking and you're teaching this child that his mother or his father are no good so-and-sos, you are saying by definition that you think this child is a no good so-and-so. So it's in your best interest to do this work. And this work is being honest. That's what this work is.
Somehow, God, the universe, the world, everybody working together, created this pocket of society that was a mirror to the rest of it. It's called foster care and adoption. We have this pocket of accountability that's called foster care and adoption.
And it's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. It's the biggest opportunity of mankind right now. And and when we get it right there, we will exponentially make our world a better place. Now, we've got about 3 minutes left in the show.
Oh no, we going on, man.
Yeah, you and I, we're gonna spend the day together. And I heard the adults out there in the audience, they said they don't want to be in a tent. But what we discovered today is that we need at least a 30-day opportunity for parents to fill the holes of silence, neglect, dependency in their lives. I think that's huge. I think it's different. But I want you to talk for 20 seconds now, Chester.
Okay, I can do that.
20 seconds to a young man or a young woman who's in the foster care system right now. They were lied to about their mother or their father. They weren't given the real story. And they need a message from you in order to figure out, a way to move forward positively.
Wow.
20 seconds.
That's
20
big.
seconds.
20 seconds. All right, 20 seconds. In 20 seconds, it's as old as time. Keep your head up. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Whatever that means, however that looks for you. Try to find that adult that's going to open up space for you to be all that you can be. And it doesn't have to be your mother. It doesn't have to be your father. Could be a teacher. Could be a preacher. Could be, the neighbor down the street. Could be, there are functioning adults in the universe who want to be there for you. Seek those people. Seek those people out. And just look to be all you can be.
So now, you grew up to work in the child welfare space. You've actually given your life in so many words to that specific industry. Can you talk to us about where you're working at today and what exactly you're doing?
I have, and life is amazing the way things play out for you. I started my career working at a small adoption agency that placed older kids. Back in the day, older kids were 7, 8. Then I moved on after that to another agency that placed older kids that weren't necessarily free for adoption. That was a whole revelation. And those kids went from, from 0 to 21 to 20. And now I find myself in the latter stages of my career where I get to do the fun part. I get to talk to folks all the time. I get to, I'm the helpline coordinator for the Adoption and the Adoptive and Foster Family Coalition of New York, formerly the Citizens Coalition of New York, AFCC, AFCNY.org. That's the website. Go there. Like I said, I'm the helpline coordinator. If you call the helpline at 888-354-1342. Chances are you're going to get me. And we have a conference coming up at the end of May. It's the 32nd annual conference. Go to that website, get all the information. We're still taking RFPs, requests for proposals. People want to do workshops. It is that 30-day retreat in 2 days where folks get there and they're going to be workshops on adoption, on foster care, on the issues, the laws, the regulations, the rules, the ins and outs. The coalition is an incredible resource. There is hundreds of years of experience, literally. If you call that helpline with a question, if I don't know it, I can get you that answer. Give me your email, your phone number, and a couple of days, and I will get back to you with that answer. If you just want to talk about foster care and adoption, give me a call at the helpline.
What's the number to the helpline?
It is 888-354-1342. 24/7. Don't be waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning if you ain't serious. Now, it's not a hotline. It's not a hotline. It's a helpline. General questions, guidance, advocacy, all that good stuff.
So for people who are thinking this was a good conversation, I want to figure out, how to keep it going. They can give you a call at this helpline, or do they need to be in New York?
No. It's well, we're focused on New York State, but I get calls from all over the country. I had a call actually from the Virgin Islands the other day. Can you imagine that? We service all of New York State from stem to stern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're down to the final 30 seconds of the show.
Yes,
I would love it if we had another hour,
Me too.
but as with all good things, they seem to come to an end. We got about 25 seconds. My first question, 3 questions in 25 seconds.
Wow.
The first question is, what is survival to you?
Survival is movement, I guess. Survival is movement. You've got to keep moving. What
is success to you?
Wow. Success is appreciating that you're blessed. However that looks.
What is greatness to you?
Wow. Greatness is a life well lived. And that's up to you to define.
Chester, I want to let you know that I've listened to your story today. I'm somebody who was directly impacted by you years ago when you asked me what is success and how can we get kids to choose success. So you helped me along my journey in ways that you'll never know. I want to thank you today, and I want to give you respect today while you can still receive it. Ladies and gentlemen, get your crown emojis ready. Get your crown emojis ready. Put your crown emojis into the chat. Because we're giving you your crown today while you can still receive it. We are letting you know, letting the world know that you, Chester Jackson, you are America's next motivator.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. You got crowns coming into the building. Yeah. Yep. Thanks for stopping by today, all right?
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. Take care.
Yes, sir. You
Peace
too.
out.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for a great show. Each and every episode of America's Next Motivator is going to have something here for you. All you've got to do is stop by and pick it up.